Greetings, this is Father Mike with our word of the week. This week's word is legacy. Legacy. Now, if you've been following along in terms of parish life and even Dominican rhythm of life, you may know that the master of the order, that is the head guy, the Pope of the Dominicans, who lives in Rome and indeed has care, stewardship for the Dominican order, the order of preachers around the world, made his formal canonical visitation to us here on the West Coast, our Western Dominican province, just a few weeks ago. Now, for anyone who's ever gone through any sort of evaluative process, it can be a little bit anxious, right? When someone comes to say, how are you doing? How can you grow? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are the challenges of life for you? A little bit of anxiety there. And can be formal as well. Well, let me tell you how it turned out. There was a great sense of joy to have the master of the order, Father Gerard, come and to visit us formally, to hear about the life of the church here at St. Dominic's and how eager he was to support us, to know that he's praying for us, and to see how our specific Dominican life, our order of life, our community life, enables us to be the most effective and fruitful preachers. And it's interesting because at the end of his 2-week stay, or almost 3-week stay here in the province, he writes a kind of report. And in his report, I found it very interesting that he reflected to us as a province, those in the Western Dominicans who minister everywhere north to Alaska, down to Mexicali, Mexico, west of the Rockies. He noticed and reflected to us of how fraternal we are in terms of our legacy. One of the legacies of the Western Dominican province that he sees and being handed down is that gift of fraternity, especially when it comes to remember those who have gone before us. Dominicans who are both active and contemplative, who live not in monasteries but in priories, we here on the Western Dominican province have taken one particular tradition from the monastic world in that we are all buried in one place. In Benicia, California, first capital of California, almost every Dominican, without exception, just a handful of exceptions, are buried in Benicia that have ministered here on the West Coast. It means when someone dies, if they do so in Alaska, to Mexicali, anywhere in between, they always return here to the Bay Area, to Benicia, to reside their final assignment in Benicia. And he noticed, the master there says, there's no other Dominican community, province in the world that has a common cemetery. And he said, for that reason, you are giving a great gift to not only your province, but to the whole Dominican world, the whole Catholic world, if you will, in pointing out and witnessing to the great legacy we have in being connected with our brothers and sisters throughout time, throughout history. In that cemetery, we have Dominican sisters who came to minister with us. We have Dominican friars. We have Dominican members of the laity, the third order, who also minister by our side, preaching as God has called them to particular vocations in the world. Whenever we celebrate Mass, and it's always a highlight when we gather together for our assemblies and celebrate Mass, we can truly say that the whole of the province, the whole of the Dominican community, not just alive right now, but all the way through the 150 years, are gathered together in that place to give worship and to be united as the order of preachers. In fact, the master joked, he said it'll be convenient too for when the resurrection of the dead comes, the general resurrection of the body, we'll be all gathered together so we can hit the ground running when it comes to getting into the heavenly banquet. That legacy then we have. We celebrate as an order because on the 7th and 8th of November, Tuesday and Wednesday, we celebrate the feasts of all Dominican saints and all Dominican souls. Unlike other orders, which simply celebrate all saints and all souls with the whole church, we as Dominicans have a particular day we do this, coming a week after the general church celebrates her own feast of calendar. And so we might remember, you who are familiar with us as Dominicans, those who have gone before us. Think of Father Felix Cassidy, who many years loved and delighted in praying for those who have departed. He'd often say, at the end of a talk or a homily, or if you had the good fortune to go to confession to him, he would say, always pray for those souls in purgatory. Always pray for those who have gone before us. Why? Because once they get into heaven, they'll pray for you. And he'd do it with a twinkle in his eye and a smile on his face. We then pray for all those who have gone before us, particularly those who have ministered here at St. Dominic's and in the Western Province, that indeed we might, through their intercession, those who are saints, indeed activate the great fraternity we celebrate, and that we might be united in fraternity as a family with the great legacy of living in God's life and love. Amen. Amen.